Alrighty, so this video is a step-by-step tutorial, a video of me creating high-converting pop-up forms for both mobile and desktop, just for an example brand, Nike. So this is an exact Klaviyo step-by-step walkthrough that my team even uses internally, and I think you're going to get a ton of value from it. So it kind of looks a little bit different from my usual videos, but it was too good not to just post as its own video because I've given it out to some people and they've said it's super helpful, and so I'm just going to give it to you for free here. So follow it, use it for mobile, and then desktop will be after, and let me know if you have any questions. Hope you enjoy it. Alrighty, this is going to be your guide for mobile forms on Klaviyo. So exactly how to make them, what templates to use, and the different features that you can use inside of Klaviyo. So this is what we're doing. We are going to start from a template on sign up forms here. So Klaviyo has some solid templates to start, but you don't want to take these as is because there's a lot of things that you are going to want to change if you've seen the rest of my resources on forms. So my favorite form, just to kind of start out with, is this multi-step email and SMS full page form. So we're just going to do this. We're going to do test video. So what you want to do here is, what's the list that you want to add these people to? Newsletter, and then SMS subscriber list, whatever you want to put them in. And then we're just going to create this form, and it's going to give us a decent template to start off with. So this is what it looks like on desktop, and then if you switch to mobile up here, this is how you're able to view mobile versus desktop. Now, I always recommend just creating separate forms for each. It's going to be easier to analyze the data. So we're going to go over mobile forms in this video. So to change this to purely be mobile, we're going to go to targeting and behavior here. And we're going to show this to display on mobile only. And you'll see this changes only to mobile. So this is kind of how the dashboard looks. You can click onto all of these features and you're able to edit them as you please, change the text. And then you also have the different steps here. So the email opt-in and then the SMS opt-in. And if you want a success message, then you can put a success message. Depending on how you are doing your SMS, not everybody's going to have SMS, but depends on how you do it. Typically, what we do that I recommend, if your SMS is on Klaviyo, if it's on a different platform, reach out to that different platform and see how you can get it onto a Klaviyo form. But essentially, you just want to take this input field. So if you go here to add blocks, this is how you can add different stuff. So we can go here to phone number, and we're just going to drop that in. And then we have the phone number, and then this is going to allow us to add another step if we want to have a success message. So we're just going to submit this form. That's what that button is going to do. We want to change it to submit, and then we can have a success message. So that's how everything looks. And if you want to add a teaser, which is essentially, we'll look at it here. Teaser is if somebody closes out of the form, this gives them the opportunity to reclaim their discount. So you can have a rectangle, circle, a corner, whatever you want to do. Typically, I don't use these because they can get in the way of a customer shopping. So in a lot of cases, I recommend not using it. You can change the size, you can change what position it goes in. So if you want to use it, awesome, you can test it. But typically, I don't recommend having it. And so I'm just going to delete it for the sake of this video. So email opt-in. Let's look at what we have inside of Klaviyo. So we have the styles, and then we have targeting behavior, and then add blocks. So styles is just like the overall setup of the form. So this kind of looks like a lot, but it's really not. We have different types of forms here. So you have a pop-up, which is kind of typically what you think of, which is this. You have a full page, which is technically a full page form, so people can't click out of it. And then you have a flyout, if you want to do something like this, and then you have an embed where you can put it on a page, but we're not going to worry about that. All of these, so pop-up, full page, and flyout, pretty much the same, except for how they come in. And like flyout, for example, you can have it come in from different areas. Typically, I am going to recommend just doing a pop-up. So pop-up, this is what we're going to do here. We're going to stick with this. You can adjust the width and anything you want, but honestly, these are good, kind of how it is. This takes up a good portion of the screen. It's exactly what we want. If you want to change it, you can do this different stuff, but you're going to have to mess around with a lot of the settings. So I just like doing the custom, what they have. So I believe this was 750 x 500. That's what I'd recommend. Side image, you don't really need one. So I do no side image, kind of messes up the sizing. So if you just want to keep this at right image, it changes the formatting for whatever reason on mobile, because on desktop it does that. So a lot of times I'll just keep this in so I don't have to adjust any of this spacing or anything. So you can just keep right image in. That's just going to save you some time. I'm going to show, yeah, this is what it's saying for the image, show on either all devices, so it's mobile and desktop, or just desktop. Just keep it on desktop. So this is what the format's going to look like on your phone. Again, there's a lot of nuance with these forms. There are plenty of different ways to skin the cat. For, if you've never heard that phrase, plenty of different ways that you can do it. But essentially you have these different, you can change your form background, whatever you want it. Typically, I like to keep things as simple as possible. We don't care about anything besides the discount. And so that's what we're going to do. First, before we do that, form styles, so things like the radius, so the rounding of the form, you can adjust that also. Again, typically, none of this stuff is going to matter too much. And then you have padding. A padding is essentially just like the white space. So if I change the padding or the margins, same as well. It's pretty much the white space. So you can adjust that as you want. And we'll probably adjust that in a second. But here you have like the fonts for the input field. So this field, we'll just keep it as Klaviyo's. So if you have custom fonts, then you can insert that here, and that's what'll go here. But essentially, we don't want to go too far off of this, because we just want the offer to be plain and clear. So that's the main thing that we want to adjust in these forms. So we don't want any of this extra copy. The more copy you add, it's just going to increase churn. It's going to scare people off. We just want the offer. So we can just delete all of this copy and just have the 10% off. So we're going to delete this. We're going to delete this block. So we just have this. And then we're going to edit this. We don't even need limited time. So whatever your offer is, you can change it here. So we're just going to say, we're going to ask people, or we're going to tell them, you want to play with your copy here, see what works the best. But a lot of times you say, like, you've got 10% off. It's just making the person feel special, like, hey, you've got 10% off, or do you want 10% off is a good question, or get 10% off. So in this case, we're going to say, let's say unlock 10% off your first order. And then we want to make 10% off. See, that's a little bit hidden. We want to make it as big as possible. So we're going to make this a little bit smaller. 25. Hopefully that'll update in the actual box. There you go. 25. Perfect. And then we're going to make this bigger. Let's change you to like 45. We can even make this bigger. Let's go 55. And you could even change the color if you wanted to, depending on what you want to do with your form. So one thing that's also good is we want to add a logo up here at the top, your brand logo, just to get a little bit of branding in. I'm going to go to image, put an image here, and I'm going to go get like Nike's logo for this case. Alrighty, so just in here, I am inserting the image for the logo, and boom, there we go. Put an alt text, and then you can adjust the size of your logo however you want it to be. Usually you want it pretty small, so it's not taking away from this. So now that we're looking at this even more, let's make this offer bigger so that it's just really right in someone's face. So let's go here. Let's change this to 60, see how that looks. And we'll go like 35, and then we'll go 35 here. And boom. Now we have this. So that looks pretty good. Unlock 10% off your first order. You could even change the color of this if you wanted. If you wanted to do like red, make it stand out a bit more, then you can do that as well. Unlock 10% off your first order. And then we have here. So it looks like these are a little bit too tight together. We really want to separate everything. So if we add padding here to the bottom of this logo, it's going to fix this. So let's add like 50 padding so they're a little bit separate. Awesome. That is pretty solid. Although this just isn't centered. So we'll talk about that in a second. But right now, another thing that we want with our form is people, when they get a pop-up form, they're pretty much automatically just going to zombie mode, just go to the top right corner and try to find the X. So we want them to not do that. We want them to actually see the offer, take it in, and essentially be forced to make a decision. Do you want the discount or do you not, rather than automatically go into the X. So we are going to pretty much remove this color. So what we can do here is we can turn the opacity on 0. So move this. Now it's pretty much a hidden X. You can't see it. And so this person's like, they have to look at the offer. But we can't just force them to do it. We have to give them the option. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our own, just like opt-out button under this button. So the person has to either claim the discount or say, no thanks, I don't want the discount. So what we can do here is we add a button here, and we want to change this button. So let's make sure that the font is the same, Poppins, and then we're going to say something like, no thanks, close form. So the person has to physically say, I don't want this discount. And so let's change this button copy to something like claim 10% off. Maybe something like that if you want to do that, but we can just keep it as claim 10% off. That looks good. And then we have this button like this. So typically what I recommend for this is turning the background as blank as well. Make you blank. And then background color, we just turn that blank, but we need to make the text visible. So we're just going to make the text like black. Perfect. And then that looks pretty good. The form looks pretty centered. There's an awkward space between them. So what we'll do here is we can make this form, we can make the button actually a little bit thinner. So it's like that. And that looks pretty good, except I kind of want this to be centered a little bit more. So I'm going to add some padding to the bottom of this to push everything else up. So we can do like 30. Perfect. Now, that looks pretty good. Now this person is forced to either claim 10% off or close the form. Let's actually turn bold off so it looks like that. Perfecto. So that's kind of the first step of the form. Now, if we want to get fancy, we can add a micro commit before our form, which, if you've seen my other content, anything else in the pop-up form document that I've sent, we talk about micro commits, and sometimes they perform better than just asking somebody straight up for their email. So let's create a micro commit step where essentially we ask somebody, do you want 10% off, before asking for the email. So we are going to add another step. So I'm just going to clone this so we don't have to redo the formatting. I'm going to name this micro commit. We're going to clone this. Micro commit is right here. I'm just going to drag this so it's the first option. So we're going to go with this and then this. So for the micro commit, we just want to delete the email section and just have this. But we would probably want to change the wording to say, do you want 10% off your first order? So we're asking these people, do you want it? And obviously, somebody is probably going to say yes. And so you get much higher click rate when you have this type of form. Let's add some padding here, just because that looks a little bit awkward. Do you want 10% off your first order? Then if they say yes, which if you look at the button action, it says show next step. And so what happens is they're going to get this step, where they get unlock 10% off. What happens just with how people think is once they've committed to something, they're much more likely to follow through. And so this, you can get higher submit rates. So that is very effective. So now we have so we get their email. We don't want to put email and SMS on the same form. We want them to be one by one. So we want it to be, this person just opted into their email, and then they're like, oh shoot, I have to do my SMS to claim my discount. We want to make it seem that you have to enter your SMS, because that's going to be the best situation. But in reality, even if somebody doesn't submit their SMS, they're going to get put in the email welcome flow. So I just deleted that SMS step, and I'm going to clone this one and name it SMS. And we're just going to replace this with SMS. So let's delete this, and then let's add a phone number. So we get this big ol', you have to put this for it to be legal. So, but we can make it a lot smaller. So let's just make it like size 8 for both of those. And then we have this little situation, which doesn't look very good, and we don't want this to scroll. So, so maybe we can change this copy to be, we can say something like enter your phone number to complete it, or we can just say, something like almost there. Almost there. Claim 10% off below. We'll say claim 10% off. And then we can make this red again. Let's get the color. Copy that, move you over here, and then do this. Almost there, claim 10% off. And maybe we could even do this and then make this text a little bit smaller. Because the person already submitted their email, they know it's 10% off. So we can do that. It doesn't need to be as massive. Why didn't you change? 25. Okay. Can you change size? Do you want to change size? There we go. Almost there, claim 10% off below. And then you have this, the phone number. So this is perfect. It'll just go phone number, perfect, and boom. Then you're pretty much set here. If you want to move this below, you can. Some brands will do that. That looks okay. Or you can even put it as low as here and then adjust the spacing. But for this case, we'll do that. Let's do this. I feel like this looks a little better. It just looks awkward because it's left aligned, but that's okay. People know what they're getting into when they sign up. So then we have that, and then we have a success form. So we can just do thanks for signing up. Let's go on ahead and add our logo. And then we need to add a close form so that they're not just stuck on this page because they can't find this X that's actually still in the corner. So we can do thanks for signing up. And then let's add a button. We have to add a close form button. We can say, instead of close form, we can say start shopping. And let's use Poppins again. Then we can make you, let's just make you black. I usually don't like to include this. So we'll just say, thanks for signing up. Check your mobile device to confirm your SMS subscription. Check your mobile device to, we want to make it a little bit more enticing, to claim your limited 10% off code. And perfect. You can play around with the spacing as you want, but that's pretty much it. So we have this micro commit. Do you want 10% off your first order? Claim 10% off, unlock 10% off. Almost there, claim below. Thanks for signing up. Perfect. And then if you don't want the micro commit, you can just delete this. No need to have it. And you could just go straight to the email opt-in. It's a great first test to do. And then what you can do is targeting behavior. So your advanced stuff. So you can have this form show immediately, which I don't recommend. You're going to want to do it based on rules when a visitor is exiting, which I don't recommend. Exit intent isn't very good. Sometimes it'll misfire. After time delay, after they scroll a certain amount or after they see a certain amount of pages, I recommend a time delay, something between 4 to 12 seconds. You can start off with 4 and then test from there. Then you have frequency. So after visitor closes this form, if they said no, how soon after are we going to show the form again? We can say 5 days. And then devices, obviously mobile only is what we're doing, and that pretty much does it. And there's a high converting form, or probably not, because you'll need to test the heck out of this from here, but that's how everything looks. That's how you use the form. You can get more fancy and do all this other stuff if you want, but this is as simple as it gets. Alrighty, so if you saw my guide for mobile pop-up forms on Klaviyo, we are now going to be doing the same thing, but for desktop. So this is what we created for mobile. If we click here, this is what it looks like. We have the email opt-in, SMS, and then success. Now we just want to do the same thing, but for desktop. So I'm just going to clone this for ease of this video and making it a little bit faster. So all you have to do is click this button here, and then we just want to clone it, and then test video desktop, and we are going to adjust this to be only desktop. So this just pulled up here. Let's go in and make our edits. So obviously this is mobile only. There's no way to view desktop, so we need to change this for the desktop. So we want to go to targeting and behavior, and then we want to display on desktop only. Oops. Desktop only. Perfect. Now, this is the form, and you can see it's already laid out cleanly for us. We just need to find an image. So I'm going to find an image. So I just put a main one from their site in, you can do anything. But for styles, you can really do anything. You could do a full page pop-up. Usually the bigger your form is, the better converting, but you have to sacrifice some customer experience because this is a little bit more bombarding. So I typically will do a pop-up like this, but maybe make it a little bit bigger. You can also do flyouts, but these aren't as effective. But typically I'd say a pop-up, and maybe you want to make this bigger. What if we made this large? Not quite big enough, so let's go back to custom. Let's try to make this a little bit bigger. Let's see if we make this 800 and we make this like 600. There's that. That's pretty good. Maybe let's make it a little bit wider. Boom, perfect. 1000 x 600 looks to be a good amount. And so one thing right off the bat, if you saw the other video, there's this little X and there's a little border around it. So we like to make our X clear so that people don't know that there's an X here, and instead they're forced to make a decision. Highly recommend doing that. It's going to improve conversions. So this background color, we want to turn this as clear as well. So we're going to drag this bar here, and magically this goes away. So this is what we have. Here, it's very simple, unlock 10% off, and then we need to adjust this picture as well. So let's go here, perfect, and then success. We have to change this image. So it's the same exact thing as mobile, so we don't really need to change too much. Maybe some formatting stuff, maybe some spacing, but overall, this looks okay. I would keep this. If you want to do a micro commit, same scenario. You could just go here, add micro commit. Put in a micro commit step and then delete this field. And then we say, we'll say, do you want 10% off your first order? You can get creative with the copy, whatever type of copy you want. And then we could say something like, yes. Something like that if you wanted, or you could just say claim 10% off. That works too. Maybe add some spacing above this because it looks a little bit awkward. And that looks pretty good. And then you have the email section. So you can adjust any of this. You could change the images to be wherever you want. We've actually tested this, and right image typically works best. You could also do left. So just flip that. Or you could also do no image and just have something like this. Definitely stuff you want to test. Make sure that if you're using an image, you are, you're compressing the image, so it's not a big file. So this one, you want to use a site like iloveimg.com, and it is going to fix it or make it smaller file so it doesn't load so slow when you pull up the form. So for some reason that reset my formatting, so let's turn this back to 1000. And that's really all that you need. And yeah, that pretty much covers it. Very similar to mobile. You just want to play around with your spacing, with your words, things you can test, and then you can take it from there.